Hi there, I'm Chef Eric Crowley, owner of the Culinary Classroom in West Los Angeles, and today I'm going to show you how to sharpen a knife utilizing a honing steel. Every good knife set or even a knife block should have a honing steel included in the set. If not, you should actually procure one. A good honing steel should have at least a 12-inch long steel rod. Some of them you'll actually find will be a little bit shorter. I find that for your bigger knives like your chef's knife, a longer steel is going to be really ideal. Also, a good steel should have a nice point at the end of the steel itself. That's going to allow you, especially if you're first starting out utilizing this, to actually be able to take this point and give it a slight amount of downward pressure into your cutting board, be it a wood or plastic cutting board. Now, a honing steel is literally called, or more specifically called, a honing steel. Sometimes it's labeled a sharpening steel, but that's actually a misnomer. This does not do any sharpening. If your knife is already dull, then utilizing this is a waste of time. What it does do, on the other hand, is it takes an already sharpened knife and it kind of fine-tunes it. It kind of polishes it, if you will. If we could look at the edge of this knife under a microscope, for example, both this side of the blade and this side of the blade come up into a point, right? And then between the handle and the tip of the blade, the knife, the edge is going to kind of wave a little bit. And what the honing steel does is it kind of aligns it, kind of trues it and fine-tunes it, kind of straightens the edge out a little bit. So say, for example, you just got done getting your knife sharpened, you took them somewhere to get sharpened and they worked really great for the first 2 or 3 times that you used them, and now you're noticing on the 4th or 5th that it's getting a little bit dull. Chances are you don't need to sharpen it again, you need to run it on this. Okay? I always tell my students, even those who are just cooking at home, every time before you start to cook, you should actually run your knife on your honing steel. And if you ever get into a professional kitchen, you'll actually see cooks wind up utilizing this several times throughout the day to get a nice edge on their knife. Now, to start utilizing this, especially if you're just starting out, you want to utilize that tip that I had mentioned and actually take it and grab a hold of the handle, give a little bit of downward pressure on the steel so this tip doesn't move around. And then we're going to wind up taking our knife, and we need to hold the knife at the right angle. For most manufacturers, it's going to be about 20 degrees. So I wound up, when I first started utilizing this, when I was first in culinary school, I wound up taking my knife, middle ring and pinky finger around the handle, thumb and forefinger around the blade, and I got the blade right up alongside the steel, swung the knife out to where it was perpendicular to it. That's a 90-degree angle between this setting here and that setting there. Half that distance is 45, half again is 22.5, and I would lower it a little bit more, and that's about 20 degrees. You can even find a little doodad, a little contraption that can clip on the back of the blade to help really get you into the habit of identifying what that angle is. We're going to start off at the heel of the blade and run it to the tip while putting a little bit of pressure against the steel. I'm going to take my knife and start off with the heel up at the top of the steel, and I'm going to flick my wrist and pull my hand back and run the knife along the steel. Should actually hear the knife ring a little bit. That's a good sign, I was always taught, that you're holding the knife at the right angle. And then you can go ahead and work on the other side. And then with a little bit of practice, once you get the angle down, you can go ahead and turn the steel around like this. And run your knife about 5 or 6 strokes on each side. That's really all you're going to need. If you don't notice any real improvement in your cutting ability after doing that, chances are your knife needs to be sharpened. Always really important when you start to switch grips and you start to hold the knife like this, and you're going to work the steel like this. Keep your hand behind the guard. Okay? The guard is there to help keep any nicks from getting onto your hand. You can see that this guy is pretty well beat up. That's because the tip sometimes hits here. You definitely don't want to hold it like that. And you also want to refrain from getting into the habit of sharpening like this, especially if you're in a close kitchen at home or professionally. You run the risk of somebody walking by and you can go ahead and cut them. Okay. And that is how you sharpen a knife using a honing steel. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to subscribe so you can get some additional information. If there's a recipe that you would like to see me make, feel free to send an email to requests@mahalo.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.